So the Justice Department at first declined to do any kind of investigation into the race soldier Derek Chauvin that killed George Floyd. Well, now that's been turned around with the new administration, and a grand jury has been impaneled to consider federal charges against Chauvin, along with the other three Minnesota race soldiers that say now their trial is pending as Chauvin's March trial for second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. So the federal investigation will automatically trigger. It says if Chauvin is acquitted or if there's a mistrial in the state case, it says he could be charged with violating George Floyd's civil rights. Of course, we saw the video that happened in May 25th, 2020. Horrible video. It was just horrible. We also had one of the, police officers that was caught in the store. We just seen all kind of things with this, like they just walking around like it ain't nothing. Now, Jim Crow Joe, he doesn't, support ending qualified immunity, which would stop a lot of this. The same thing that Trump didn't support ending qualified immunity. See, that's the problem, because they understand that they need to enforce a wing of white supremacy to be able to kill without consequence. And that's just the bottom line with that. When you get in politics, you got to start beating that drum by ending qualified immunity, because if they're going to be charged or even civilly liable on their own, it's going to make them think about what they're doing. Now, they said that the federal charge of violating a person's civil rights is not based on race, but the idea that Chauvin willfully violated George Floyd's constitutional rights, particularly the right to due process. And they said the federal grand jury is focused on Chauvin's actions. He was a senior officer on site, which we know that George Floyd's death sparked, definitely a reckoning in this country. The whole world got to see, the death of George Floyd, and, it made America look very bad. And we all said that how America been treating us. And now, because due to the invention of the internet and the camera phone and all of that, the world got to watch, what America's really doing in real time. They can't put up that facade that they're the beacon of democracy and they're the beacon of human rights. And no, they're not. They're no different than any other country that has a dictator or anything else violating human rights. Because understand, how they treat black folks is human rights violations. That's not normal, and that's not democracy. So now they said that, they're saying that Jim Crow Joe said that in personal terms, and how George Floyd affected him and redoubled his commitment to advancing racial justice. But if you look at the term racial justice, it doesn't mean ending white supremacy. Racial justice is a term that relates to everybody. That's an all lives matter term. That's not an anti-black racism term. That's not something to end white supremacy. That's not nothing to end qualified immunity. Now, he says he also made clear that he firmly believes that the DOJ must, be able to act independently in investigating and prosecuting any case. Now, you remember, if you have been watching, the judge that Barack Obama wanted, Merrick Garland, the one that McConnell said, I don't want to give him a hearing. I don't want to hear about it. Now they're going to put him as the Attorney General. And he addressed, say, systemic racism in America's justice system. He defined this. I think it's plain to me that there's discrimination and widespread desperate treatment of communities, he said, of color and other ethnic minorities in this country. Now, the state trial for Derek Chauvin is supposed to be March the 8th. And they said Minnesota National Guard members have been activated. And they said the city of Minneapolis will rely on security, from surrounding places. But this is the thing. They gonna have to jail this guy, because it's gonna be the same thing if they don't jail him, especially with that video. Then you already know what's gonna happen. I mean, the writing's gonna be on the wall. If he's just released to go back, he didn't do anything. You can't do something like this and not go to prison. Come on now. There was no reason for that. They had other cops around. He was already handcuffed. He just did that because he just wanted to kill a black person that day. That's all. But leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about the situation, about the DOJ is getting a grand jury together for George Floyd. We know about these grand juries, you know, even that system of a grand jury being secretive. And I still don't like that because, you know, I've been told many times by attorneys, prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich if it wants to. They don't need a grand jury for anything. I just think that's a way to play a game to me and say, oh, well, if they don't come back and do it. See, it was the grand jury, kind of like in the case of Breonna Taylor when you had that Daniel Cameron say, see, the grand jury didn't do it. It wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? But people found him out and now people are suing his behind. Exactly what I mean by that, just trying to play a game.